It was a scorching afternoon in Alabama, the year 1852. The air was so suffocating that every breath felt heavy. Cotton fields stretched endlessly, soft white buds swaying in the sun, beautiful to the eye, yet their roots carried a history buried in blood and tears. Bent low among those fields stood Elias Johnson, tall and strong once, but now weakened by exhaustion and the scars of countless whippings. His torn, faded shirt was drenched in sweat, and his bare feet endured the burning earth. The deep lines across his back told stories of cruelty, but in his eyes still burned a flame that refused to die. All around, enslaved men and women toiled, hunched over as they picked cotton. Overseer shouts and the crack of whips echoed in the air. On horseback sat Samuel Carter, whip in hand, arrogance in his eyes. Not far away, a carriage stood. From it stepped Thomas Reed, a fat, greedy slave trader who valued human beings only as property, as coins in his purse. From the plantation porch, Margaret Williams watched, dressed in flowing white silk, a string of pearls around her neck, her cold blue eyes filled with pride and disdain. She looked at the fields as though they were nothing more than her possession. Samuel pointed toward Elias. "Look there, sir. Elias. Strong. Stubborn too. He's been whipped 3 times this week alone, but that fire in his eyes won't fade." Thomas smirked. "Stubborn or soft, I only care for the price. He'll work the fields for years to come." Elias heard every word. His body was chained, but his spirit still stood free. Far away in the slave quarters, his wife, Rosa Johnson, prayed with trembling lips that somehow, these chains might one day break. Evening fell. The slave market in Montgomery was crowded with buyers. At the center stood a tall wooden platform, a stage that for years had heard the cries of souls being sold. On that platform now stood Elias Johnson, his wrists bound in iron, his clothes torn, yet his chest still proud. Around him, mothers clutched their children, trembling with the fear of being torn apart forever. Thomas Reed called out loudly, "Look here, 32 years old, strong, the best field hand you'll find. Works from dawn till dusk. Start your bidding." The crowd buzzed with laughter and whispers. Some pressed his arms. Others checked his teeth, as though he were cattle, not a man. Elias's eyes searched the crowd, and then they found her. In the corner stood Rosa Johnson. Tears in her eyes, lips trembling with a silent prayer. "Please, Lord, do not take him from me." But her prayer was drowned out by the whip's crack and the voices of bidders. Suddenly, Margaret Williams' voice rang clear. "I'll take him. $500. The gavel struck. The crowd clapped and dispersed. And in that single moment, a man's freedom, a woman's love, and a family's future were all sold away. The sound of that gavel slowly faded and transformed into the echo inside a modern conference room. High above New York City, glass walls opened to the sky. At the head of a long table sat Margaret Williams, no longer in silk, but in a tailored gray designer suit. Around her, board members sat, all white, all staring at one man, Elias Johnson. But Elias was no longer a slave. He was now a successful businessman, dressed in a navy suit, briefcase by his side, eyes filled with confidence. Yet the air felt the same as it had on that auction block, only the faces had changed. Margaret closed the file in front of her and said smoothly, "Mr. Johnson, we recognize your hard work, but the board's decision is that you're not fit for this promotion." Her words cut like another lash of the whip, soft in tone but sharp in meaning. Elias said nothing. In his mind, he could still hear the echo of the auction block. He knew the chains were gone, but the walls of prejudice still stood. At that moment, the door opened. In walked Rosa Johnson, now an attorney. Dressed in a black suit, file in hand, Her eyes carried the same fire that once hid behind tears. She placed the file firmly on the table. These documents are proof of discriminatory practices. You cannot stop us any longer. The room fell silent. Evening. Outside a small school, Elias Johnson stood holding the hand of his young son, Michael Johnson. 10-year-old Michael's face beamed with a smile, his eyes bright with dreams. Wearing his school uniform, backpack bouncing on his shoulders, he looked up at his father and asked, "Daddy, can I be like you one day? A businessman?" Elias knelt, meeting his son's gaze. "Yes, son, you can be everything I never could, because on your shoulders, no chains will ever rest." Rosa stepped closer, brushing her son's hair with a proud smile. The setting sun cast long shadows behind the three of them. Narration: chains have changed, faces have changed, but the struggle remains. From the slave block to the boardroom, racism has only changed its clothing. Yet where oppression lives, hope survives. And in Michael's smile, that hope burns bright.